Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another edition of the Wrap Up. I'm Nick Buckler. With me, as always, Dan Myers. Dan, it's almost been a year of this lovely show we call the Wrap Up, and a year ago, we were talking about Red Wings in the playoffs, and now, a year later, we're talking about Red Wings being in or out. We're not quite sure, Dan, but what do you think? Are they going to make it? 3 games left. Let's go.
It's been a terrific journey so far. As far as the wrap-up's concerned, as far as the Wings are concerned, what else do you expect? The past couple of years, we've been biting our nails when it's coming towards the end of the season. I think it's going to take a lot more than just the Wings, and obviously, with Chicago beating the Bruins this weekend, that definitely helped the Wings' chances. Are they in? I'm going to go yes. Yeah, I think the tradition's going. It's been going for so long. Why stop now? But I think it'll be more beneficial for the Wings if they don't make it in.
Explain.
As far as that, I feel that every year it's just, the past couple of years, it's been this whole journey of we got to continue the streak, keep the streak alive. And they just skim by just a little bit. They just make it in, and I feel like they're content with making it into the playoffs and keeping this streak alive, where there's no real urgency to make depth into the playoffs or even think about a Stanley Cup Finals journey. So I feel like the only way we'll take this team seriously in the big fixes, whether it's fixing Ken Holland with that whole side story or fixing different positions on the team, I feel like it'll be more important and more of an issue if they don't make it in and the streak ends this year.
See, I couldn't disagree any possibly more than I disagree with you right now, Dan. Let me tell you why. So what you're trying to say is when they get in, they're like, all right, mission accomplished, we're done? Because, see, I think when you're a player, when you go into a playoff series, it's a new year. You have new life. Like, look at last year. No one gave them a fighting chance to even give Tampa Bay a series. And what did they do? They took them to 7 games. They, had the series won. Then, obviously, we saw what happened, and then the year before, when no one gave them a chance against Anaheim, or 2 years prior, when no one gave them a chance against Anaheim, they beat them in 7. Now they're really going to get killed by Chicago. They had that series 3-2 and ended up losing in 7 games. So, the only time that I could say they were content with getting in and then tanked was the Boston series when they didn't even show up in the playoffs 2 years ago. They won 1 game, the game 1 of that series, 1-0, and then they lost 4 straight. I think this team, they have to rally together. I think they're going to get in, and I don't think it's all about the streak, which is an incredible streak to say the least, but I think this team feels that they're good enough. And do I think they are? Maybe, maybe not. Their defense is not good, and their goaltending needs to get hot, but I think that they're going to rally together for Hank, for Pav. This could be their last chance. Now they're talking that Pavel Datsyuk is going to leave after this year and go back to Russia and play his last couple seasons there. He still has 1 year left on his contract here in Detroit. But for them, they need the younger guys, AA, Larkin, Mantha, and the D to shore up for these guys because this could be their real last crack at it. I don't think that it would benefit them at all if they miss the playoffs because what's the difference, from a drafting standpoint? If they miss the playoffs, they're drafting, 17th? As opposed to being one of the last couple teams in, drafting 15th. To me, there's no difference there. And I know you didn't say anything about the draft, but I think from a draft standpoint, it makes no benefit to miss the playoffs. And I really don't think missing by a point or making it by a point is going to make ownership in the front office say, whoa, we need a drastic change here. Because they're still so high on their D guys. They're high on Eriksson. They're high on these guys, Smith. Kyle Quincy's a unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. Sure, don't bring him back, even though he's been one of their best defensemen this whole season. But they're just high on these guys that really don't have much talent, and I don't think that's going to change if they miss the playoffs.
Yeah, that's true. And with what I said earlier, as far as I don't mean they turn off their skills and they just stop playing for the playoffs. They're a professional team. Unless you're talking about the NBA, I really don't think you're ever going to get that from a professional team. I just feel like there's some sort of complacency in their head where they, it might not go as far. But, you're right. They do have these guys that they really have to think about going, pulling the trigger and getting them out of town and making some draft picks, or not draft picks, but trades for a bigger player. But, yeah, I do see what you're saying, and I do agree with you that it's it's also a series of unfortunate events. I mean, we can go all the way back to the last time they were in the Cup finals and they lost. You know, there was obviously a bunch of crucial injuries and stuff like that. But yeah, these following years, yeah, the streak was alive. But unfortunately, you know, whether it was just poor playing on our end or just luck of the draw, they haven't been able to go too far either. So.
And another reason I think they can go decently far is if they take that third spot, which, by the way, they're in right now, even in games against Boston. Detroit has 91 points. Boston has 90 points after their loss to Chicago on Sunday. Both teams have 3 games remaining, and one of those 3 games is against one another. It's at TD Garden in Boston on Thursday. The Wings have a tough schedule. They play home against Philly on Wednesday, then at Boston on Thursday, and then at New York Rangers on Saturday. I don't think that Saturday game's going to matter.
Right.
I think the Wings take care of business on Wednesday and Thursday. They're in.
Yeah.
No question about it. But back to what I was saying about why I think that this team can go far once they get into the playoffs is they're likely going to play Tampa if they get that third spot. Tampa is now without Steven Stamkos for 1 to 3 months due to a blood clot in his arm. And don't get me wrong, last year in the playoffs, he really didn't show up against Detroit. But just his presence, they shut him down. DeKeyser and Quincy did such a good job against Steven Stamkos last year in the playoffs. I don't think that having him there, backtrack, I think having him there put so much pressure on the D to cover him. It let Tyler Johnson single-handedly win the series for Tampa. Ben Bishop's a good goalie, but I think the Wings can get to him. Luke Glendening is such an important part to this team. When he plays 15 minutes in a game, this is a better hockey team. You have Glendening, and Riley Sheahan has been the hottest player on the team of late. Those guys are going to be big moving into the playoffs, especially with a guy like Stamkos not playing. Jonathan Drouin, if he ends up coming up with that team, I don't think he's going to be he's never played in the postseason. He's going to get pushed around even by the Red Wings, who's not by any means a physical team. Without Stamkos, Red Wings have a chance to go the second round.
Absolutely. And like touching back on what you were saying as far as the Wings covering Stamkos, with him being out, that is one less star that they have to focus on. And, they've learned their lesson before, especially, in the postseason playing Tampa last year. It's, I think they sort of are on their way of figuring out, because let's be real. Playoff hockey and regular season hockey is 2 different games played, 2 different types of, you'll get the regular season player that you have is different in the postseason. I mean, we go back and looking at Johan Franz and how great he was, and then the following season, well, we all know where the story is at now.
I want to interrupt. Yeah. Pavel Datsyuk is a completely different player when it comes to the postseason. Mm-hmm. He plays so physical. He puts the team on his back at times. And that's what you need from a veteran and a guy who's elite as Pavel Datsyuk. And I think he's a completely different guy when it comes April, May, and June.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, like you were talking about Drouin, I think there's a big maturity problem with that player. And if the Wings could get inside his head and take advantage of that, that'd be great too. They have Boyle, who's just, you got to watch out for, big, heavy presence on the ice. But the key is, I think, like you said, with the strong defense, and we have to have a strong netminder within Howard and/or Mrazek. Personally, I think Mrazek, you've been in the Joe. You've seen how he's been doing. From an outsider's point of view, it seems like he's sick. Something's bothering him. He just never really fully recovered after he had the flu. Maybe there's more to the story that we'll probably find out at the end of this postseason run or at the end of this regular season, depending on if they make it or not. But I think Howard's the go-to guy, and he just needs to stay mentally competent and physically in shape, and hopefully get the Wings going far in the playoffs, if not to the Cup finals.
Howard is thriving right now. His confidence is higher than it's been since he was the first half of last year when he was named to the All-Star team. He is thriving. He's playing well. He's got his angles. He's making himself as big as possible. And Mrazek it's not that he's been that bad. Montreal game, he was swimming. He looked like Tim Cheveldae out there, but he doesn't seem there. I don't think there's an injury or a sickness. It's just confidence. And goalies, they're a strange breed. Yes. And if you say one thing that messes with their confidence, they're done for a while. Look at Jimmy Howard this whole year. Mm-hmm. He was messed up in the head, and next thing you know, he's back. It started that game, I believe it was a Sunday at Madison Square Garden when he shut out the Rangers through 3 periods and they ended up losing in overtime 1-0. He made 41 saves, and he just kept playing so well, and now he's nonetheless stolen the job away from Peter Mrazek, and I think he's the guy who, I said at the beginning of the year, For the team's sake, Jimmy Howard needs to win the starting job. Nothing against Mrazek. Jimmy Howard's been there. He's done it. He's won Game 7s. He's taken a team almost to a Stanley Cup final. He's won playoff rounds. He knows what it takes. Mrazek did a great job last year in the playoffs, but you need somewhat of a veteran that's been there and done it, and I think Jimmy Howard's the guy, and he's played really well back-to-back, Friday, Saturday. First goalie to win back-to-back games, same back-to-back nights, since Jonas Gustafsson back in October of 2013. So that's kind of a crazy stat to me because that just shows that, A, the Wings don't show up on one of the back-to-back days. Normally the second day, the Wings always struggle. Doesn't matter who they're playing. That's why I was worried about that Toronto game. I know Toronto's not a good team, but traveling and still having to play the next night after you played a great game on Friday against Minnesota to come out and have the same goalie, which I think they needed to have Jimmy Howard play that game. He played well. The team started on time, played well. Good to get secondary scoring. Look at the guys who scored goals in that game against Toronto. Mike Green, Brad Richards, Kyle Quincy ends up getting the game winner. That's what you need. You can't have your stars carrying you. You need secondary scoring. Wings have gotten that. Riley Shane scores on Friday night. It's just great. That pass, by the way, Friday night. Did you see that from Nyquist behind the net to Tomas Tatar?
Yes.
It was just a great no-look pass. They could be the new age Euro twins, so to speak. They're on the same page so much. It was great to see. Good to get those 4 points, and I think they need 4 points in their next 2 games as well if they want to make the postseason.
Absolutely. And going back to what you're saying about Toronto, you've said it pretty much all year, and I really didn't notice it until you actually pointed it out. But you've been saying that the Wings play with their opponents. So when they come into a Toronto game where they're expected to beat them, yes, they have the jet lag and the traveling and maybe the games before, the schedule before, but they also, like you've said before, they do play to their opponents. And that's why you have to worry about these games like Toronto, where it should be an automatic W, and that's why it's hurting them, because they have been playing to their opponents. So when we play these lesser teams, they're not playing at full capability, I feel, and that's why we're losing certain games or blowing leads like we have been. And right now it's hurting them. But going back to as far as the playoff run, I feel especially it's more apparent now is your goalie is almost as strong as your defense, and your defense is almost as strong as your offense. Whereas if the offense isn't clicking, if the defense aren't clicking, they're blinding the goalie. They're getting screenshots to which are going in, and especially when you have two, you got 2 huge players with Eriksson and De Keyser staying in front of the net, out of position, blocking the goalie's view. And I think that the defense really has to step up and mature and definitely improve their gameplay. I think that's going to be huge. That'll make or break this team going into the postseason, should they make it, and the defense will decide how far they want to go.
Yeah, in the long run, it all comes down to defense, and I don't know if the Red Wings have a strong defense, but look at last year. They stepped up in the postseason, and we're going to need that again.
Absolutely.
Another playoff push, the Detroit Pistons, the basketball team, who would have thunk? Right now they're tied with the 7th seed. They're tied with Indiana Pacers for that, and Chicago is 2 games behind them. Big win on Friday night. Pistons in Chicago. They defeat the Bulls, who are right on their heels, 94-90. And they have 5 games left on the schedule, all against pretty good opponents other than the Orlando Magic. They have 2 against Miami, at Miami Tuesday, and then they play them again next week. Miami's right now the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. Those are going to be a huge 2 games right there. Then they go to Orlando while they're down there. They play Washington, who's the 10th spot, still has an outside chance of getting in, but they need a prayer. And then end the year at Cleveland, so hopefully it won't come down to that game. But you never know. Maybe LeBron, Kevin Love, everyone will be resting at that point. And to be honest, I don't think Cleveland is that good of a team. I think they're very much overhyped and overrated. Absolutely. And I think LeBron this year has not been the same LeBron, and even last year and years before that. And if the Pistons do get that 8th seed, they'll play the Cavaliers. I think they could win 2, maybe take that game to 7 games, that series to 7 games. But you never know. Anything could happen. Obviously, they're a whole different team come playoff time. Pistons haven't been to the playoffs since 2008. So it's been a while for this team. But they're a new team. Stan Van Gundy's a great coach. Last year was the only year in his NBA career as a head coach that he has missed the postseason. So he knows how to coach in those situations. And this is a young team. Obviously, we're not expecting him to do much in the postseason, but anything they do now is good for them. It's a plus. And their magic number's down to 3. So take care of business yourself. You'll be in midweek. So hopefully we see Pistons basketball in the postseason.
Yeah, absolutely. And, their starting lineup's been huge. And I think they really could take out a team like Cleveland. And I just feel like the youth is there. There's some sort of camaraderie, eerily reminiscent to the going to work era as far as, you got a bunch of different personalities, but they all mesh. They're terrific. And you can tell there's a gel. It might not be this season, but it'll be it's just time. I really don't feel like they have to really improve this team. The team just has to be more familiar with each other. And you're seeing little bits of that. Harris, Drummond, Jackson are doing great. KCP's on fire. They do have to increase, fix some minor adjustments. But aside from that, I think they're a terrific team. And, it's just a amount of time before they actually excel. And you see the real true talent that this team could actually carry.
Well, the problem I see, the number one problem with this team is they can't, when it comes down to close games late, they have Andre Drummond, and that's a problem. They pulled him the last 4 minutes, 31 seconds of their game last week against Dallas. They ended up losing by 9. But it's because he can't make free throws. He's started the year close to like 55%. He's down to 42% on the season from the charity stripe. It's a free throw. It's free. You have to take those points. And I understand missing one every once in a while, shooting 70%. But he is so bad at the line that it costs his team down the stretch. And that's a problem when it comes to closing out games, especially in the postseason. Teams are going to see that. When the game's close, even with 6 minutes left, they're going to start hacking him. Hack-a-Dre, they call it. And he's going to head to the stripe and miss free throws, and that's how you're going to find yourself down. So Aaron Baines' play is going to be huge and if they make the postseason, the backup center. He's played great this year in limited action, but he's going to have to really step up because I feel like Drummond's going to spend some time on the bench because they're not going to let free throws hurt this team. Van Gundy won't do it. He's already started to show it down the stretch.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is just a real travesty. I mean, you and I, we've been watching the March Madness tournament, and when you're seeing these guys from like Bob's University making 90% free throws,
where's Bob's?
It's right outside Johnstown.
Oh, John, yeah.
So, but these small universities where they got these guys, that shouldn't be that big of a star player, making 80% at the free throw line with it's like you said, it's a charity stripe. You're getting a free shot. These professional athletes making these massive salaries and they can't make a simple free throw with no obstruction in their view. They just got to put the ball in the basket. It's embarrassing, and that really needs to change. And hopefully, Drummond can fix that problem.
Even when they did Hack-a-Ben in the 04, Ben Wallace was making almost 70% of his free throws, so he was in the 60s. So this is just so much worse than anything we're used to seeing. It's almost frustrating because Andre Drummond makes the most money on the Detroit Pistons, and he's 21 years old, and it's like just no care in the world. He's living the dream. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't care, but it's just the way it seems when he's at the stripe. Just can tell there's frustration, but if it were me and I was coaching this team, I would say you don't leave practice until you make 10 in a row.
Yeah.
I think everyone on the team could do it except him. And it's just a matter of pressure free throws. You have to practice those. Even non-pressure free throws he can't make. I mean, it's like beating a dead horse, though. I mean, we've been saying it for years that he's terrible at free throws, never improved. So who knows? Hopefully the Pistons can make a run deep and make us believers again in this team. It's always fun down at the Palace come postseason time. We'll have to check out some games if they are to punch their ticket to the extra season. The Tigers are starting their initial season coming up this week at the Miami Marlins for 2 games before they come home Friday for opening day in Detroit against the New York Yankees. And it's going to be a cold one. 34 degrees is the expected high temperature in downtown Detroit for that one. And it looks like Jordan Zimmerman, the newly acquired starting pitcher, will get the nod on the mound opening day on Friday. And that's good to see because Justin Verlander was going to get the nod Tuesday in Miami. Verlander, Tigers are going to need him to be very well, like he was in the second half last year, if they want to have success this year, which me and you both agree it could be tough.
Yeah, it's very risky. Yeah, believe it or not, it's opening days coming up. I mean, the baseball season's starting, and we just had snow this weekend, so it's hard to believe that the baseball season started. But yeah, it's exciting time here in Detroit. You got 3 big teams playing, 2 for which possibly a playoff team. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Zimmerman does. I was kind of hoping that Verlander would be able to get the nod, but I thought he was doing pretty good towards the end of last season. We'll see how that goes. He definitely has to step his game up, his pitching up for the Tigers to make a run this year. We'll see how it goes.
They do call it April in the D.
That's true.
And
yeah,
it is
absolutely.
a great time to be alive. Hopefully we have 3 teams playing. Pistons, Red Wings, Tigers. It's going to be fun. But the Tigers have finalized their lineup, opening day lineup. And Shane Green back into the starting rotation this year due to the injury of Daniel Norris. But Shane Green's been lights out in the spring. Big deal to me. I think spring is completely overhyped. It's a bunch of nobodies. And when you do play, you're playing against nobodies. So, Shane Green, let's see what you got in the regular season. I hope you're as good as you were in April of last year when we were saying, thank you, New York, for the steal. But Shane Green, they're going to need him to fill in for Daniel Norris. He was expected back towards the latter half of April, who they acquired in the trade for David Price last year. But they got a bunch of names you may not know in this bullpen. Logan Kensing, the more veteran right-hander, eat up some innings, long relief, if the team's getting beat up a little bit, which they may be. J.D. Martinez, though, batting 5th. Victor into that cleanup spot, which is a little questionable. We're going to have to find out. Hopefully he plays how he was 2 years ago before he was injured, but J.D. cracked 3 home runs in a game last week. The Tigers had 7 home runs as a team. Ian Kinsler's hitting for pop. Cabrera obviously is a great hitter, but the question for me is the outfield. Mm-hmm. You have Tyler Collins, you have Cameron Maybin, and you have Anthony Gose. Those 3 guys, 2 of them are going to start every night. And that really worries me. I don't think Cameron Maybin is that good. I don't think Anthony Gose is that good. And I really don't think Tyler Collins is that good. Right. We have one outfielder, and that's J.D. Martinez, and he's horrible at outfield. He's not good. Great hitter, awful in the field. Could be a long year when it comes to the outfield. Hopefully Anthony Gose hits like he did in the first half of last year, but you have to put together a full 162 games. And I think those 3 guys are going to platoon hopefully nicely. If not, they're going to have to make a move, and they're going to have to make a move quick. Al Avila, I think, is unlike Dave Dombrowski. He's not going to put up with it. I mean, he pretty much sent his son packing because he wasn't good enough. Alex Avila now in the White Sox. But I really think he's not going to put up with it. They're going to have to make a move. There's a lot of prospects, if you will, down in AAA, even though they were rated the 30th best minor league farm in baseball last year. So, I mean, that's not good when you're looking at moving players. Hey, we got some prospects. Yeah, you have the worst prospects in the league. But, I mean, they're going to have to figure out something because I don't think having 2 of 3 subpar outfielders is going to work out for this team.
Right, absolutely. And I think the key word for this team is reliability, because you're going to need these guys. You're never going to have a fully healthy team throughout the complete season. It just doesn't happen. I mean, in a perfect world, yeah, maybe, but it doesn't happen. So we need these guys like the outfielders, like you're talking about, Gose and Maybin. They need to be reliable, especially when our big stars aren't showing up or are in a slump. And that's how you win. That's how you get to the World Series. That's how you make it to the playoffs. Is just you need to have this reliability and this dependence, not just only on your stars, but the smaller guys, the guys you don't normally hear about. At least just being productive. And they need to be productive, and hopefully, we have a relatively healthy season. It's the Tigers. You never know what's going to happen with them, especially these past couple seasons. But just we need the reliability factor to be there and not to be questioned. And hopefully we'll be talking about them for a long, long time to come.
I most certainly hope so. The Masters coming up this week. It's the most coveted tournament in golf. It's great. The Green Jacket. Jordan Spieth is the defending champ. He didn't fare so hot this past week in the Shell Open, but Jim Herman got the win, his first ever career PGA win. So he is now in the field of the Masters. Don't look out for him. I don't think he's going to make the cut.
He's happy to be there.
I told you last week my pick is Adam Scott. Mm-hmm. Who do you have?
I like Rory. I don't know. That's my guy. I really like him. We'll see how far he can go, but yeah, I do like Spieth too.
It's hard to bet against these guys. Jason Day, too, the #1 player in the world. But Adam Scott's my guy. He's the leader in the FedEx Cup right now. Look out. Don't sleep on Kevin Kistner either. I think he could be a sleeper in this. Remember, I said that next week if he is putting on a green jacket. But I got Scott. You got Rory. There will be a friendly competition there. Maybe some betting. Not for money because that's illegal.
Chips.
And we follow the law here on the wrap-up. And who knows, hopefully next week we'll be talking about a Red Wings playoff preview. And I'm celebrating me winning the Masters. For Dan Myers, I'm Nick Buckler saying so long